Hey everybody, Christopher here.
Hey guys, Noah here.
I might be a little biased, but tonight we're talking about one of my favorite subjects. Tonight we're talking about psychic abilities and intuition. Hmm. Why might that be my favorite? I don't even think you have to be psychic to know the answer to that. I'm going to have way too much fun with this tonight.
This one's gonna be a fun one, especially because, like, for my side of things too, it's like, not all of us get to be 3 for 3 all the time, but some of us, however, we're ju- we're just built different.
Well, there's that time you were working on seven, but someone shot it down.
My own spirit guide was like, "You need humbled. You need humbled, and you need humbled now." I
Part of
was
their
so
job was to
angry.
teach a lesson.
She did that. She just did that shit just to make me feel bad.
She did it just for her own amusement. She thought it would be fun.
Oh my god! But it is a really interesting topic in the sense of there's so many ways that it goes, and the thing that I'm sure obviously you're going to be able to attest to that I've noticed that when it comes to psychic abilities, there's a lot of similarities and there's a lot of things that we can talk about as far as like specific abilities that people have, but it's almost as if there's like no psychic person is necessarily the same. Like everybody has their own way of doing things or the way that it comes to them. So it's almost like even though there's similarities in like the specific abilities that somebody contains, or has, it's everybody's different. It's different in everybody that you meet that is a psychic medium or even just has some capacity of psychic abilities.
Right. And you are very right when you say that everyone's different. I mean, some people are mediums, some are not. You can be a very gifted psychic without being a medium. They're not the same thing. So there's just so many different layers to this.
Right.
And when I've spent years and years teaching psychic development circles or mediumship development circles or combined psychic medium development circles, however that's played out, we do sometimes deep dive into the different ways people can connect psychically. Some people can see and hear, some people can just see, some people just know, some people have the whole package. It's always different. And I think energetically it can change. I mean,
Right.
for me, sometimes I see them, sometimes I don't. It depends on my energy, it depends on theirs.
Right, and
So many
you brought
factors.
up you brought up a good point there too. That are like you sparked an idea into my mind about the other part of today's subject, and the fact that like it's related but it's not at the same time. It's kind of a weird crossover, but intuition itself. And so it's like that's an interesting thing to get into because a lot of people, whether they have psychic abilities or not, they have some form of intuition on things.
Right.
But sometimes it seems to be more than that. Like, and that's weird. So like what first comes to mind whenever you start talking about intuition?
To me, intuition is just that sense of knowing. When you know something and have absolutely no reason to know it, you just do. People can ask you all day long, how do you know that? And you might never have an answer for it because it's just there. That to me is a big part of intuition. And I mean, when it comes to psychic abilities and just knowing, the term claircognizance, clear knowing,
Right.
that to me is intuition or a part of it.
And that's a thing that I think even is developed over time because as we've kind of seen from my side of things, which I've said a million times, I don't possess the abilities that you have as far as like the seeing and hearing things that, stuff like that. But this intuition idea is something that I believe I have in a capacity. And it's something that I'm still learning because I'm doing it more now than I used to, or I'm noticing it more now than I used to. And I'm learning to trust it a little bit more. But the reason that it's so interesting and why I don't really have an answer for anybody that does ask me is because it feels like a guess. It's almost like just something oddly pops into your head, an image, a thought, a name, just something. It's just something pops into your head and it feels like a guess. So you simply say it, and then it's really weird when it lines up or ends up being fact. But it feels very much like a huge guess. You know what I mean? Like it just comes across your mind in such a weird way that you're just like, let me say this real quick. And when it turns out to be fact, or somebody tells you like, oh yeah, you were 100% right in that, you're like, that's weird. And I don't even know how to explain that in a sense. And I don't even, I want to say it's kind of like a chicken and the egg thing. Like, I don't know if it's like it's happening more because I'm noticing it more. So therefore it's kind of like just strengthening it, or it's always been like that. And I am just simply noticing that I'm doing it more. I don't know which is necessarily the case. I almost want to say it's the first, because I almost feel like in order for me to do it more and more, I have to realize that I'm even doing it in the first place.
When now you're putting yourself in situations more frequently, or even just over and over again, where you have to use that part of yourself.
Right. And another thing that's, I don't know if I want to say frustrating, but it almost is, in the sense of, with my spirit guide Jane consistently here recently, she's been trying to test me on those type of things, because we'll be in an Estes method and she'll be telling me information and I'll be looking for an answer for her to just give me, and then she's like, you'll know it, or trust yourself. She'll say stuff like that, and I'm sitting here like, oh my god, like, I don't feel confident in this because I'm not at a point where I fully trust my intuition. I'm learning to trust it more and more, but I'm not that at that point of confidence in it where I'm just like, let's stake this entire investigation on my intuition. Is kind of where I'm at with it. But so it's in a way frustrating, but I understand that for my own spiritual enlightenment and to strengthen the abilities that I do possess, I have to go through this process.
And I wouldn't think that any time she says that, she says, you'll know, I don't think she's going to set you up for failure.
Right.
Or if for whatever reason you do start to go the wrong direction with something, either she's going to let it play out because there's something there you're meant to learn, or
Right.
if it's going the wrong direction and something horrible is going to come about as a result, I think she'll redirect you.
We saw that in the latest episode of OSR Gangs, Chains, and Who's Jane. Remember, because I had a thought about somebody, and I was specifically talking about Ryan from Twin Paranormal, because I thought that was the Ryan that she was talking about, and she just consistently was hitting you with the with the dowsing rods.
I
She was
still have
hitting you.
bruises.
She was hitting you with the rods, going no, 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 like, and then I'm sitting there like, oh, you're talking about a different Ryan, and she's like, yes, and so I was like, oh, that was a dumb moment for me. It is what it is. So we've seen where she is more than willing to correct me if I'm 100% wrong in something I'm thinking at the moment.
My shoulders are still bruised.
Oh my.
I mean,
But
I'm sure my guides have to do that for me too. I'm sometimes wrong, even as well versed as I am in my psychic abilities. I'm wrong sometimes. It happens.
we're never going to be fully right, and that's the point of investigating. And that's also why it's like it's important not to just always go with the first thing that your mind goes to or the first thing that pops up. That's why you go to a deeper level, because a lot of times we are wrong in the first thing we think of. Now, again, this is back to the intuition of like sometimes you're very right with that first thought, so it's sometimes go with it, but understand that we need to go deeper and we need to see where does this go, and then we need to correlate, does this make sense to this, and just kind of pinpoint everything. So I mean, yeah, we're never going to be at a point where you're 100% right on everything, even the first time or first couple of times. There's always going to be that level of, that's why we investigate, that's why we do things the way that we do it, that's why every investigator should do in that capacity or some way. You can't just always go with the first thing that happens.
Right. Right. And another thing that I'll add to that, and I'll say based on some work I've done in the past, I've been compared to some other psychics who've been featured in videos. And someone had once made a comment that I couldn't be a real psychic because I wasn't just constantly talking about everything and anything that was coming.
Right.
And I very deliberately don't do that because usually I have a purpose. I want to get something done. So I'm grabbing on to what I think is going to help unfold that purpose. If I'm just word vomiting everything that's coming, everything I'm feeling or seeing, it's not going to be productive to me. It's certainly not going to be productive to the people who are working with me and trying to get something done.
Right. And there's all kinds of levels to, why certain psychic mediums do or don't. And it's like there's multiple layers as to why that's possible. There's the simple fact that, like we started out by saying, not all psychic mediums are the same in what they pick up on. Some people pick up on different things than other people do. And then we talk about energy levels in the sense of there's some psychic mediums that might have more energy than others, so they're able to pick up on more, or they're more attuned in understanding what they're picking up and stuff like that. And then there's the simple, like, for instance, a psychic ability that I believe I possess, and I think at this point I'm very confident in that, and I think you'll agree with me on this, is empathic abilities. And I think it doesn't, for me, I think it doesn't matter if they're living or dead. I think I'm just feeling what somebody else is feeling. And it's something that I've only really started to really understand it or put it together that that's what I'm doing here in the last year or so. And one of the biggest examples I can give, as far as like something that I did when I was younger that I never knew how to explain or maybe even understand what was happening, but like one of my least favorite places to be is at a funeral home whenever you're at a viewing or something like that, or just a funeral in general. And it's always because it doesn't matter if I knew the person or I didn't. There are times where I want to break down in tears of sadness. And I always used to like question this because it would happen, and it'd be for people I didn't even really know. I'm just there to support somebody else because they've lost somebody. And I'd want to break out in tears. And I never understood that until I started understanding. I think I have empathic abilities and I'm feeling what they're feeling. I'm literally feeling the emotion that they're feeling. So when somebody's super happy, I'm feeling that. When somebody's super angry around me, I'm feeling that. If somebody's sad, so on and so forth is what I'm getting at. And that's one of those abilities that now is I'm trying to learn how to understand that more, and it's helping me investigate in the sense of in OSR part 2, whenever we were talking to I think it was Howard was his name.
Yes.
Howard and his daughter Catherine.
Right.
And I got that overwhelming sense of sadness. And that's what helped me, and on my side of things, piece together what we were doing in that moment. You know, we
Right.
had got the name Catherine, we had got the name Howard. We were trying to figure out what the dynamic here was, especially because Catherine's not like, it was a male prison. That shouldn't be somebody that should be there. You know what I mean? So like,
Right.
and it wasn't a name that was associated with anybody that, like, any spirit that we know or anywhere we've been. So like, we're trying to figure out what's going on, and me using what I was feeling helped me piece together the fact that, like, this might be somebody that he knew. And then I remembered, hey, we got not like 9, and I'm like, is that the age? Is that somebody's age? Like, is that Catherine's age? And it just helped. So it helped me put that together for myself, so I could help facilitate the investigation that we were doing.
Right.
So in a roundabout way, my whole point is to say that, like, everybody's got psychic ability. Anybody that has psychic abilities has a capacity at which they know how to use it, they can use it, they notice it. And there's the stuff where, like, I don't have all the abilities you have, so I can't do all the things that you do. You pick up on a lot more than I do. But on the same level, with the way that my intuition works, as people have started to see in our videos and will continue to see as they come out, the way that our intuitions work really bounce off of each other. So there's a lot of times where either I'm thinking about something and you go a different route that helps us solve the puzzle. And sometimes it's the opposite, where you're on a track and I bring up something based off of something I thought, and then it leads us down the right road. And sometimes it just bounces off of each other, and it depends on what we're doing, how we're doing it. And that's just like with any investigation, that's what you're going to have. So for somebody to comment that you're not doing, like, you couldn't be real because of that, it's like, that's one of the most absurd comments I think you could leave. And it's like, and again, not to say that anybody does do this or would do this, but the person that leaves that comment, you have to look at it also as, there's also the possibility that some of the people that all they do is just call out random things could be faking it. I'm not saying that anybody does do that. I'm not saying they would do that. I'm just saying that it's a possibility. If they're going to say that you're faking it because you're not getting everything, I could say the opposite and say the person that does get everything is faking it. Because
Right.
what's the likelihood that you're picking up on every little detail? And the thing about it is like, what if they're picking up details that you can go do research about, and the research doesn't line up with what they're saying? That's when it starts to get questionable for me. Not
Don't get me
saying it.
started there. I'm hanging
I'm
on to
not
one of those.
right. I'm not saying any. I'm not saying anybody does that. I'm not saying they would do this, and I want to make that very clear. I'm just saying this is like the same way that it's a controversial topic for us. It's a controversial topic for anybody, and that's why it's like, never will I ever fake evidence. You know what I mean? If I'm putting something out there, it's because I believe in it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now, could I be wrong? Sure. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong in the future. You know what I mean? But if I'm putting something out there, it's because I genuinely believe it to be true. And that's one of those things that, like, I'm not okay with people that do fake things. I'm not saying anybody does that. I'm not saying they would do this. I'm just saying anything is possible. So keep an open mind. Don't just start taking jabs at people just because.
Right. And my catchphrase that I always use when I say I've got something, but I'm going to hang on to it for a bit.
Right.
There's a number of reasons I do that. One is I'm not quite certain on it yet, and I need something just a little bit stronger for me to really put it out there. Because, like you're
Right.
saying, what you put out there, you believe in.
Right.
I'm the same way. And sometimes I need just a little bit more before I can put it out there. Other times when I do that, it's because I've got the thought and I think to myself, is that really the direction it's going? And if you haven't gone that way, if somebody else I'm working with hasn't gone that way, I'll think to myself, I don't want to push this
Right.
that way. I want to let it go there on its own if it's meant to.
Right. And that's like something I'm working on too as well, because you've seen me do this a lot. and this is on camera and off camera. I do this a lot. But there will be points where you'll see me and I'll literally just be sitting there staring off into space for like the longest point of time. And you'll look at me and you'll go, "Have you what you thinking about, or have you got something?" And I'll sit there and I'll just be like, I don't know. I'm collecting my thoughts, but this is what I'm thinking at the moment." And that is because I've had a lot of times it's because I've had something come to me and I'm trying to make it make sense in my head as far as like, does it make sense? Is it like, am I pushing something or am I pulling on something right now? And so I'm kind of starting to do that in my own way as well.
Right. Yeah, you are. I've seen it.
That,
It
or it's
means
just
you're
because my mind
evolving.
is right. That, or it's like my mind is just so jumbled that I'm sitting there literally collecting my thoughts. Because like, how many times at this point have we been like, we'll be given a name of somebody, and I'll just literally be sitting there like, where does that name connect? Like, where have I
You have
heard
to like
that name before?
stick the ladle in the soup and see if you can pull it out.
Right? Like, we've been to so many locations at this point, and part of the problem and why it's so hard to keep track of is that like, we'll be at a location and somebody will come through that's not from that location, and then they'll start talking about somebody from an even different location. So then we're sitting there after a while like, I can't remember who connects where. Like, we need one of those really big bulletin boards with all the like pinpoints and the strings to like connect all the dots. Like, we need one of those just to keep all of this stuff connected and to make it make sense.
That's true. And I keep saying I'm going to start bringing my laptop in and writing notes, and I never do.
I think something too that maybe we should also kind of like bring up real quick that I just thought of is for anybody that maybe is interested when it comes to psychic abilities that doesn't know a lot about it, there's a lot of different types. And they might have heard some of like the terms for them. Like, you have clairvoyance, you have clairsentience, stuff like that. And that is more of like your side of expertise. So would you mind maybe like talking about that for a little bit, like kind of giving a couple of the different examples of them and like what some of their abilities are that relates to the name that they're given as far as clairvoyant, clairsentient. So that way for anybody that is interested, they can kind of hear about that. Or if they're kind of like, you know what, I think I have a little bit of abilities, but I don't really know what they are or really how to use them. Maybe it'll kind of help them understand what that is, and maybe kind of spark like, oh, I think I do that. So then they can start maybe like looking into it themselves and enhance their own sort of spirituality.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that. And for some of these, I'll even throw out like ways one might be able to enhance that if that's
Okay.
something that they have or if it's something that they want to have, because I believe people can develop these things even if they have no trace of it to start with. Again, I've taught psychic development circles around the country for many, many years. And
Right.
that's what I do, is try to help people either enhance what they have or develop what they wish to be able to do. So since it's one you throw out there, I'll start with clairvoyance. That is clear seeing. And to me, this seeing can come on many different levels. When I walk into a location and I see someone standing in front of me, that is seeing. When you get an image in your mind's eye, not with your physical eyes, but still you're seeing it in your mind, that to me is clear seeing. Any visualization exercise that you do can help to enhance this. Even something as simple as a candle gazing meditation, like you stare with your eyes open at a lit candle in a dark room. And when I say stare, I don't mean like as hard as you can. Just let your eyes go soft, let them water, let it all happen naturally and organically. Try to take in all the details you can. What color is the flame? What color is the candle? What is the flame doing? Are there different colors, textures? What is the wax doing? Then you close your eyes and you try to hold that image in your mind as long as you can. Any visualization exercise like that will help with clairvoyance.
Okay. I think for me, and it's not like I don't think this is a super strong ability that I possess. But I do notice that I've never seen anything necessarily with my physical eyes, like in the physical nature. But
Hmm.
I have had sort of images pop into my head from time to time about things.
Right.
So that's something that I'm kind of working on myself. And it's not at a super strong capacity because it's not something that I do a lot, but I have had that happen. So I can attest to the side of if this is something that somebody thinks they might be able to do, that I believe 100% that yeah, you can definitely strengthen that in some capacity because it's something that I don't do a lot, but I have here recently had it happen a lot more frequently.
Right. And I wouldn't ever want anyone to think that in order to work with clairvoyance, you have to see with your physical eyes. That's not it. There's a lot more to it than that. So a lot of people say they don't have that gift, and then they realize, oh, but I do see things in my mind's eye. I do get visions and see pictures.
Right. And I think mine too is like maybe even more closely associated with the vision like dreams that I've had and we've talked about on here before. I think that might be part of it too, because I've had those sort of like visions that come to me at when I'm sleeping.
Right. Absolutely. The next one I'll throw out there is clairaudience, clear hearing. And this to me can work just like clairvoyance in the sense that sometimes you might hear something in your physical ears. Sometimes you might hear something, a voice spoken in your mind. It can work either way. To me, one of the best ways to enhance that, I'll throw two out there. One is to just sit in the room you're in and listen. Start peeling back all of the sounds that you'd expect to hear. And then start to take inventory of the sounds you're picking up that you might not expect to hear. And very often you'll be surprised what you receive from that. Another one that's very practical for developing clairaudience: listen to your favorite song in your head. Don't play it,
Hmm.
listen to it in your head and try to really recreate as much of it as possible. The instrumental breaks, all of it, not just the chorus, all the details. I bet in doing that, people will notice something about their favorite song, maybe a song they've heard hundreds of times that they never noticed before. And that organically leads to just peeling back these layers and being able to hear in different ways.
Wow, yeah, I never really thought of it that way, but that makes a lot of sense. It's almost
Right.
like it's like anybody like if you're just like a visual or it's the only way I can think of it right now to explain it, but it's like if you're somebody that's really good at imagining things in your head about seeing it or hearing it in your head, it's like that makes sense. That makes sense that that would be possibly a doorway into doing that at a higher capacity. Now, there is something that I'm going to throw out here, and this isn't meant to be a joke. This is a legitimate thing that I feel like we should bring up about what we're talking about right now. So maybe we can kind of talk about it, and maybe because I feel like this is one of those things where, like, if there's anybody that is a naysayer on psychic abilities, they're going to bring this up. So therefore, I feel like it's better that we just talk about it rather than have it bring up. But from your experience when it comes to psychic abilities, how do you basically tell the difference for somebody that is hearing and seeing things in their mind's eye versus somebody that has schizophrenia?
That is really tough.
Right. And that's why I wanted to bring it up. Not to like, you know what I mean, not to make this like a hard thing to explain especially, but
Right.
I feel like it's one of those things that like because this is such a controversial topic, that I feel like it's almost like it's better that we do talk about it. So
Right.
I feel like it's better that we do talk about it rather than try to avoid it and then like answer somebody's question when they bring it up. So I figured why not just go ahead and try to answer in the best way that we possibly can.
I'm not one to really shoot down anything. When someone says something to me that they're seeing something, hearing something, whatever it may be, they feel something, they know something, even if it's so far removed from what I'm getting, it's just not a part of my experience. I'm not going to tell them they're wrong. I
Right.
always say too that some spirits, they see me walk in a room and they're probably like, oh, fuck no, I'm not talking to him. And then somebody else walks in and they're like, hey, I'm going to talk to them. They just don't like me for whatever reason.
Right. Right.
So I don't ever shoot down anything that anyone says to me. More often than not, I'll feel something in my gut that will say, you know, this person's really onto something, or there might be something else going on in their head.
Right. And another level of it too is that I feel like, again, like something that we've even started to notice about the old times, as far as like people back in the day that had any sort of psychic abilities were seen as like insane, and they were put in insane asylums and stuff like that. So, not to say that schizophrenia doesn't exist, but it's also a topic that's so hard for people to fathom, that is it possible that they really are seeing and hearing things that are technically there. It's just that because they also have some other mental um, things going on, that they're not able to communicate it in a way for people to believe them, if that makes any sort of sense. I'm really trying to not be insensitive about this topic, you know what I mean? Because
Right.
I'm really trying to go about this the right way, because I don't want to be insensitive about this whole thing, because I do think that it is a mental illness, you know what I mean? I think it does exist in the same way that, like, in the same way that there are the physical, you know, illnesses and stuff like that. And that's where it's kind of like, so therefore, if we talk about the mind being the computer that the spirit uses to communicate, you know, if there's a problem, if there's a mental illness somewhere, then any abilities that you do contain are going to be hindered in some way.
Right.
They're going to be miswired in some sort of way. So that might be why they are really seeing and hearing things that aren't there at all, because there's a miswire. But I'm also just trying to point out the idea or possibility that it doesn't mean that they're not. It's just that, like, they're seeing and hearing things that other people don't, but because they don't see and hear those things, they're just instantly saying they're crazy. You know
Right.
what I mean? I'm not saying that it's not possible. I'm just bringing that up, but I just thought it was one of those things that we did need to bring up and talk about for a second, and just throw out there. But I understand that that's a hard topic to bring up, because I don't at all want to be insensitive to that in any way, shape, or form, and that's why it's like I want to say things the right way, and I know you do too. So, but
Absolutely.
I feel like it was something that needed to be said, just to bring that up, because I'm not, yeah, because like if somebody was to bring that up, I can't be mad at that. I can see from their point of view that would be a good argument against it.
Oh, for sure.
So,
No, I'm definitely glad you brought that up.
but I didn't mean to cut you off on your explaining of the different psychic abilities. It just popped into my head, and I was like, I think this is something we need to bring up real quick.
No,
Especially
it's
because
all good.
you were talking about the visual and the listening. That's where that popped into my mind. Is that like, oh, there are people that are labeled as schizophrenic, and that perfectly talks about like what they describe that happens to them.
Right.
So that's where that kind of you jumped in my mind, but I'll let you continue on explaining the different
No,
things.
and just, I mean, riding that thought for a second, this idea of how many people may have been diagnosed with something like that when what they may have been experiencing was some degree of psychic ability. I'll say the very first time I connected with and interacted with who became your spirit guide,
Right.
What I was seeing was her in a state of just complete and utter confusion, not understanding what was happening to her, because she very much had psychic abilities and didn't understand what she was seeing and feeling and experiencing.
Right.
So that's definitely a thing.
Mm-hmm. It's one of those things that it's kind of like, it's more understandable for back in the day where we didn't have as much technology and stuff that we do today, that would have been a lot more common. You know what I mean? They didn't really have practical ways to test for those kind of things. Where like scientists today now like will like put stuff like monitors on your head and stuff like that and check your brain activity and stuff like that, and they're able to see the differences between somebody that does have something going on or doesn't have something going on, and that's how they're able to test it and stuff like that, where back in the day didn't have that. But at the same time, I also don't think that even with the modern technology that 100% proves anything, because as I've said before, I think that everybody actually has the potential to do these things. It's just it hasn't been unlocked yet. And one of the coolest pieces of equipment that I've ever seen as a physical piece of equipment that I really want to get my hands on at one point is the God helmet that we've talked about off camera. And because from the way that I understand it to work, that I've seen other investigators use it, is that it is a helmet in which it has things that you put on your head that essentially send magnetic pulses through your brain, and they supposedly unlock parts of the brain that you don't currently use. And they claim that it actually is what helps people unlock their spiritual nature in a sense. And when people do it, they start seeing and hearing things things that aren't typically there. And it's like, anybody that has done it and isn't okay with that process, they get kind of freaked out by it, and
Right.
and then they never want to do it again. And I can understand that, because if you're not even somebody that believes in that stuff and then you're just instantly thrown into that, yeah, I'd be freaked out too.
Right.
And so whenever you look at a piece of equipment like that and you're like, oh, they're unlocking things in your brain to give you these sort of abilities, possibly, then how does it, so then to me that also proves that, like, so whenever the doctors and scientists are doing these tests on the brain activity, and somebody over here might be having a little bit more activity, that proves to me that there's something there.
Right.
So it's not something that I'm smart enough to explain. It's not something I'm smart enough to comprehend at this current time. So it's one of those things that, like, we just keep doing our research and we believe what we believe, and we try to explain it the best that we can. But I have to look at all possibilities when I'm doing this research.
Oh, absolutely. I would love for us to get our hands on one of those.
I would, and I'd like to see for myself if it works. You know what I mean? Because obviously I hear about it, and I somewhat believe in what they're saying. You know, there's a lot of things that obviously are out there theories that I definitely believe in, but I want to know it for myself. You know, I want to experience it for myself so I can then say without a doubt, hey, from my experience, I had something happen. Something was opened. I saw things at a different rate than I do. And then once I know that it essentially works, the potential of what that does for the way that we investigate it. Can you imagine, with your abilities that you already possess, and then I under the God helmet, the possible communication that would happen from that if we were both on that same level of stuff?
Right.
And then it's even like, take that to the next level where it's like, if I put you under the God helmet with all of your already existing abilities, what does it then open up that's beyond that? So like the potential, the possibility for things to happen is, I don't even know. So it's one of those pieces of equipment that, like, I have to get my hands on it at some point.
What if we put it on me and it just shut me down? I got nothing.
I mean, that's a possibility. You know what I mean? Anything is possible. My general belief is that wouldn't happen, because my belief
I
is
don't think
that
it would
like
either.
I believe that it's kind of like we are no, like, even somebody like you that has as many abilities as you do, we're not even close to like understanding our spiritual nature and the potential of abilities that we actually could possess. Like, I'm gonna say it, and people are probably gonna be like, this guy's fucking crazy, but it is what it is. I'm going to say things like telekinesis, where you move things with your mind, is 100% possible. And I think it has happened, in the sense of, if you look at ancient texts with the Egyptians and stuff like that, they talked about that kind of stuff.
Right.
They talked about it. So I don't think not only is it possible, I think it's been done. It's just that at our current state of being, we're deliberately being hindered from reaching that, because can you imagine if people, how powerful we would be if we unlocked our potential? I mean,
Right.
I think there's something that is deliberately hindering us from doing that.
You just want to do your chokehold. That's all.
I would straight be Darth Vader, and I would be choking somebody out. I I would straight be the villain in that story. I just, it'd be. Can you imagine? It'd be so funny if like we'd be doing a reading for somebody. You know, you'd be sitting there doing a reading for them and stuff like that, and they're like, they just get up from the table and they're like, "This is bullshit," and then all of a sudden you just see them like, "Ugh," and I'm just sitting there like, "I find your lack of faith disturbing." uh, well,
Oh, that was
I might
oh,
lose a
that
couple
was rolled my
followers
head
for
for a
that one,
while.
but I might lose a couple followers for that one, but you know, it is what it is, I guess. But anybody that does enjoy Darth Vader, I'm a big Darth Vader enthusiast, so hit me up on Facebook.
I'm going to jump to the next one on my list.
That sounds like a great plan. Let's segue from that.
I'm going to go with clairsentience next, clear
Okay.
feeling.
Okay.
And this can be as simple as walking into a place. How often have you said yourself or heard someone else say, it feels super heavy in here?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That is
That's yeah.
feeling.
Yeah, that's the one that I would probably that's the one I would probably resonate the most with, because as far as feelings, that's more of my area and what I know that I do.
Right. And different ways that one can enhance this. One of the exercises that I ask people to do in my psychic development circles, I'll take a picture of someone that I know they won't know, and I'll zoom in just on their eyes. That's all you see is the eyes. And I'll ask people to look at it and tell me, what were they feeling in the moment that was taken? Of course, it's got to be a picture where I know what was actually going on in the
Right.
background.
Right.
Another way we can work with feeling is just when you pick up an object and touch it with your hands. How does it feel to hold it? What comes to you from feeling the object in your hands? I mean, that's called psychometry. It's another whole avenue there.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's something that I don't like. It's funny that you say that, because a lot of times I know you've shown me pictures of people's eyes, but you've never specifically asked me how were they feeling. You've always asked me like, what does this look like to you? And I'm just like, I don't fucking know. Like, and then I sit there and I look at it, I'm like, I don't know, it kind of looks like this or that or whatever. We haven't done that one yet. We haven't done that exercise where I look at somebody's eyes and then tell you how they felt.
Right. No, I've definitely asked you what you're seeing there or what the eyes might resemble. When I do that, there's an importance to it.
There's
There's a reason
right. There's
for it.
always meaning to it, right? I was just simply pointing out that would be a fun one to do at some point, because I don't we haven't done that specifically yet.
Yeah, we'll do that. I'll
But
hit you with one soon.
And it's one too that while it's like I'm more confident in that one in the sense I know I do that, that's the one that I'm working on the most right now in understanding it, or like understanding the different feelings that you get in a place. And a lot of times it's hard, I think, because a lot of these places when you go there, it's like there's so much history in a place and so many different layers of emotions that why it's like I know a lot of times like we'll go in somewhere and you might ask me how I'm feeling. It's almost like sometimes I need a second to process it in a way because I'm feeling so many different things at the moment. I don't know what to latch on to. Kind of like the same thing you were talking about with the things that like the voices that are popping up in your head and stuff and they're saying things to you. It's like I'm trying to grasp onto which one I'm really feeling. You know what I mean? If that makes any sort of sense. It's like there's
Right.
all these different layers of emotions that might be connecting to different things or events, and then that also might mean that all the emotions I'm feeling aren't necessarily connected to a person, but it might just be residual energy in something that happened there. So it's like a lot of times it's almost like a flood that just hits me right on, and I'm it takes me a minute to like really understand what am I feeling, what's hitting me the hardest, or what do I think I need to grasp onto at the moment. And that's
Right.
something that I'm really working on trying to do that at a better capacity and understand that. But that's why I wanted to bring up earlier about the whole thing about the funeral, like just as an example of a place that obviously you like when people go there, it is immense emotion. And in a way, obviously, the number one emotion that people are going to have is sadness. You know what I mean? But
Right.
even there, there's happiness because they're remembering memories about the person that they had that, that had passed away. There were, you know what I mean? So, like, even there, there's always like a flood of emotions that happen. And that's why it's like I've always growing up felt uncomfortable there because I'd go there and I wouldn't even know somebody. I wouldn't even know the person that passed away. I just was going there to support whoever, who knew that person. But then I'd be sitting there like getting emotional and I'd be trying to stop myself in the sense of like, why am I feeling like this? I didn't know this person. You know what I mean? As sad as that is to
Right.
say, like obviously death is just a sad thing in general, so I don't want to be insensitive to that either. But it's like I didn't know this person. Why am I getting so sad about it? And then after a while, it made me realize I'm not feeling my feelings. I'm feeling their feelings.
Right.
And I think that also too is like something that we didn't really see in the Bill Manor series, but we've started to see it more in the OSR series, and that also is just given to the fact that I'm getting a little bit more comfortable with doing this, is that the way in which I started to talk to a couple of the spirits and when I was feeling something, I think that's also something that just helps me in how I'm going to talk to somebody. Because if I understand how they're feeling, I understand a little bit more how I need to speak with them. So
Right.
that's where it's something I've noticed too that like it helps me and understand how I need to say things or who I need to say things to in a capacity. I'm obviously not an expert in this. I'm just saying as an example of why this might make sense.
Right. Yeah, you're just talking off of your experience, which is exactly what you should be doing. I mean, that's what I do. I talk off of my experiences.
Right. Right.
The last one I'm going to throw out there is the clear cognizance, the clear knowing, where you just know something. And I know you've heard me tell the story. I've told the story of the woman with the tattoo that said grandma. And I'm like, that's beautiful. Like, what can you tell me about her? Like, well, she's still alive. What? Why would you say that? It's like, because she's not dead. The only other option is she's still alive. And the woman said, you're right. How do you know that? It's like, I guess I don't know. I just do.
I just know that.
And
Yeah.
to me, the best two ways to enhance that are to acknowledge what your gut says and act accordingly based on what your gut says, because those are not the same thing.
Right.
People can know what their gut says all day long and then still overthink what they know. They don't act based on what their gut is saying.
They're
If
not
you know,
trusting in what they're, you know what I mean?
right,
They're not trusting in it. They're overthinking because they have an idea pop into their head, and instead of just going with it, which a lot of times we need to do, they're just like, that shouldn't work, or that shouldn't be right. So let me think of something else. They're not trusting in that intuition.
right. And this is something when I do individual readings for people, it just comes up over and over and over again. I feel like my part of my life's work is to help people connect to their gut.
Right. And that's something that I'm working on, as we kind of said before. That's something that, like, I'm definitely guilty of, in the sense of I'm not always trusting the first thought that pops into my head about something, and that's something that I need to get better at, because I'm not always right, but I do weirdly know things that are happening, or things that, you know what I mean, and I don't always go with my first thought, and it hinders me, and I need to stop doing that, and I understand that. But I'm a hypocrite. If I would be a hypocrite if I said, like, oh yeah, just do that, because I do that too. I'm very bad about trusting my intuition, and it's because I am still so new to that side of abilities.
I will pretty confidently say that just about 100% of the time I trust my gut, whether it's something I'm working through in a location, something in my own personal life, something I'm helping someone else through. I can confidently say I almost 100% of the time trust it.
It's like whenever I originally texted you about Crooked Path Paranormal, about making a group, you just was like, yes,
Yeah.
you trusted your gut, and I can't blame you for that.
I did trust my gut on that. There was no room to question it. It was just absolutely, yes, this is what's going to happen.
That's like, if there's anybody that's watching this video or sees the post on Facebook or anything, if you have some intuition that you should go and follow Crooked Path Paranormal, I can tell you, you are also 100% right. You should do that.
Not only are we out there helping the spirits, but we're very entertaining.
We are. And just think of it this way. If you subscribe, it might save one person from eventually getting force choked by me.
What if they want to see that?
Then still subscribe, because then you'd be able to see it.
We could put it out there as a subscriber challenge. When we hit 1,000, you'll force choke someone, but that unfortunately means you have to master that before then.
Yeah, that's one of those things, like, it will eventually come, but stay tuned.
Ask Jane if she can help you with that. I bet that's going to be a
I
big
don't think
no.
she would. I think she'd
I
shut
don't
that
think
shit
she would
down.
either. I think
Yeah,
she would.
unfortunately. I'll be like, I'll find me a spirit guide that will.
I'm having a moment of clairvoyance right now. I'm seeing the rods opening to no over and over and over again.
So, to kind of segue from that for a second, I think the last thing that we should say before putting this to a close is, we've kind of talked about some of the different versions of, you know, clairvoyance, clairsentience, stuff like that. However, we've also kind of, in a way, noted that there are people, especially like yourself, that contain things from each section. You know what I mean? That are almost kind of like all in one, or they contain certain ones. Because, like, even though yours are at a much higher capacity than mine, I've even noticed that some of those things I can say, oh, well, I resonate with that from this from that, not the whole picture, but pieces. Like the clairvoyance was like, oh, I sometimes get images in my head. I don't see it physically, but sometimes I get images in my head. The
Right.
clairsentience of the knowing and stuff, that one's like the one that I really resonate with, and like so in the best way that you possibly could maybe describe that in the sense of what is that like whenever they have all of these different abilities that almost kind of are all like all in one almost what would you say about that?
I don't know that there's really a term for that, because to me, to use the term psychic, for someone to claim that term for themselves, if they have experience with any one of those gifts, even if it's in a minimal fashion, I think they can still claim that term for themselves. I
Okay.
wouldn't pull that word away from anyone. There's
Okay.
not really different degrees of psychic in that sense. If you have one ability, it's one word. If you have two abilities, it's another word. Just to me, once you start to get bits and pieces of all the different clairsenses, then it just becomes a big psychic soup.
That makes sense. I get what you're saying, and that's why maybe it is sometimes hard to understand because it's hard to explain in the sense of there's not really a term for. I mean, other than to say you're psychic, but at the same time, then but if somebody was to ask me like, hey, what is your psychic abilities, I'll sit there and I'll explain it to you. And it's like, well, what does that make you? And it's like, well, I have bits and pieces from clairsentience, I have bits and pieces from clairvoyance, but I also would not call myself a psychic medium. You know what I mean? I wouldn't call myself that. So that's why I think it is so hard for people to understand, because it's hard to explain. There's not really a clear cut term for people. The word that I like, that I always used, but I've also been told I'm technically wrong in saying this. I used to use the word sensitive. I used to just say I'm a sensitive, because I'm not really a psychic medium, but I do contain abilities to some capacity, so I'm a sensitive. And then I was told that, well, that's not technically right. And that's why I'm like, well, this is why it's hard to understand, because you don't have a term for me. So when anybody asks me what I am, I can't really tell you other than, well, I have this and this and this, but I don't have this, this, and this. That's why it's hard.
One of the clearest ways I can discern for people between psychic and medium, if someone comes to me and asks me to do a tarot card reading about their career, the insight that I'm giving them, coming from my intuition, that to me is very much the psychic realm. If somebody comes to me and asks me, can you please connect to my deceased father? If I'm able to successfully do that, then I'm acting as a medium.
So I guess in a way you're kind of saying that if somebody was to ask me, I could claim to be a psychic, but not a psychic medium, is essentially how I'm understanding that.
Right.
Because I can't necessarily just connect to somebody's dead relative and pull information like that. But I do contain psychic abilities that assist me in investigating and stuff like that. So therefore, if I as I learn more about tarot and I eventually am able to do tarot card readings, I could be a psychic doing a tarot card reading, but not a psychic medium. Does that
Correct.
make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. That makes perfect sense.
Okay. That makes
Yeah.
I mean that makes sense.
Even when that woman's grandma on her arm, and I'm saying she's still alive, I was not connecting to the spirit of someone deceased. I was not engaging in my mediumship ability in that moment. That was purely knowing. That was purely psychic.
Right.
But that moment, I'm gonna throw a good friend of mine out there. That moment when I'm doing a seance in the basement of this haunted location, my friend is upstairs, and I'm getting this message going, "What? She's not even down here." The bowl. What's with the bowl? What she's doing wrong with the bowl? You know that reference. And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not going to tell the whole story, but I got a message from someone's mother that they were misusing a bowl that was used for holidays for one particular food. And the mother was not happy that this was being used for other foods. So as the dance ended, I had to go upstairs and say to my friend, hey, what's with the brown bowl? And she looked at me, what the fuck did you just say? I opened a huge can of worms.
Yes.
I didn't do it. Her mom opened a huge can of worms. I didn't do it.
You were
I
just the
didn't ask
messenger.
for her. I didn't pull that thread. I had a
Yeah,
room full of people that I was trying to connect to their loved ones. And then,
right.
boom, there was the brown bowl in front of me.
Oh my God. Yeah, you were just the unfortunate messenger.
Right. Oh, they were
Oh,
so mad.
yeah. Well, unfortunately, I mean, as much as I hate to kind of end this topic, because I feel like this is one that we could go on forever and ever about, we're kind of at that point where we should probably just end it for today, so we don't sit here for the next 3 hours just talking about it. But this was such a fun one to talk about, and I can't wait to talk a little bit more about it because there's even avenues we still could go down. We just don't have time today for it.
Did you show our dear friend and supporter Kim what you had
Oh,
for her tonight?
I haven't referenced it, but she had to know. If she's paying attention, she's gonna see it, and it is the Red Solo Cup made a return for this video.
I actually didn't even see you with it once since we've been doing this, so that's why I said that.
I think it's because
Clearly,
I think it's because you're talking whenever when I'm drinking
could
because
be.
I always like I'll talk for a while and then I feel parched, so then I take a drink. But at that point, you're answering what I said, so that's when I'm drinking. So that's probably why you didn't notice it. But
Clearly, my clairvoyance is much better on a spiritual level. When it's seeing
then
something in my
an
mind's
observer.
eye or seeing the woman in the room at the infirmary, but when it's actually seeing what's in front of me in your hand, forget it. Clairvoyance, there is shot.
All right.
Oh,
But yeah, this was such a fun one to do today, and I can't wait to talk about it some more. And again, as always, I hope everybody liked today's video. I hope you guys leave a comment or a question in the comment section for us to possibly answer in the future. And I'll see you next week.
see you later, everybody. Take care.
All right. Bye.